Didn't want to become part of a Muslim family, and she knew that this was simply a straightforward political proposal.
When Richard's secret dealings with the Muslims were revealed, his fellow Crusaders were scathing. The Church preferred to drive the infidel from the Holy Land by force. Richard had little choice but to heed the demands of his increasingly impatient army. Reluctantly, he prepared to face the dangers of the treacherous winter road to Jerusalem. Despite weeks of torrential rain, the devoted Crusaders struggled on. But the nearer Richard got to his goal, the more worried he became. Just 6 miles from the Holy City, Richard brought his army to a halt. He held council with a group of local knights who had made the Holy Land their home and were concerned about the long-term future of the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem.
It became clear, and this is what Richard was told above all by the men who had lived all their lives there, who knew the country well, who understood its problems, that it just wasn't on. Even if they were to succeed in capturing Jerusalem, they wouldn't be able to hold it for long. Part of the trouble was that those who were keenest to go to Jerusalem, those who pushed hardest for this march, were precisely the people who felt themselves to be pilgrims. And as pilgrims, once they had fulfilled their vow of getting to Jerusalem, would then go home, abandoning the city that they had struggled so long to take, and they would lose it again quickly. What was the point of that?
Richard could see no point in pressing home the attack, only to lose Jerusalem a few months later. On the advice of his local knights, he decided to turn his army around and march back to Jaffa.
The idea of not going to Jerusalem provokes outrage and uproar in the Crusader army. They committed themselves to the cause of Christ. They wanted to complete their pilgrimage. And here was their leader, their esteemed leader, telling them that it wasn't possible. They couldn't understand it. They felt, some of them felt very betrayed, some of them felt almost that Richard was being a coward. But the reality was, their leaders said they had to turn around and go back.
Their hopes shattered. Many pilgrims died of exposure. Thousands of others deserted Richard's crusade in disgust. In Jerusalem, Saladin gained little political capital from Richard's retreat. He was increasingly isolated from his council.
Saladin's power started declining. He had reports that it was becoming impossible to find soldiers or supplies. He also received news from Damascus stating that even if trees of the fertile oasis were cut, there was no more timber to make weapons like arrows and catapults.
As time passed, Saladin became more and more vulnerable. It was becoming increasingly clear that if Richard tried to attack Jerusalem again when the weather improved, the holy city would be almost impossible to defend. It seemed only a matter of time. In Jaffa, Richard attempted to rally his troops after the bitter disappointment of the failure to reach Jerusalem.